Welcome to Working Dogs and Whiskey. Join Sean White and Jonathan Moses as they pour a glass and dive into insightful and fun conversations about dogs in all their incredible roles. So grab your favorite drink and let's raise a glass to great stories, laughs, and a whole lot of dog talk.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Working Dogs and Whiskey. I'm Sean White, and I'm sitting here with my friend, co-host, Jonathan Moses. How you been, man?
Pretty good. Sore, tired, training these pet dogs. What you been getting into?
Not sore. Those days are past me. But no, same thing, dude. Just boarding and training. And then we got the great opportunity to work with our guest here for tonight, Mr. Mike Lilley, doing some tracking with the Marine Corps and him really changing the game, and we'll kind of dive into it. Mike, how you been, man?
Man, great week. Not so great weather, but it turned out good Friday. So it was warmer than what we've had in Tennessee. So we're good to have it.
Yeah, man, we appreciate you sticking it through with us. I know some of your stories you told us Canada was nothing compared to what we went through in Texas. So
yeah, for super windy. The first year of taught out there at Mike Nesbitt's Working Dog Seminar at his kennel, and super heavy wind, pretty freaking cold, but we made it through it.
Man, I'm telling you, dedicated to the cause, dude. But so if you will, man, we'll get it out the way. I know this isn't your first time being on a podcast, but if you could just give us your background and how you got into the dog industry.
Yeah, man. So I was lucky enough to have a dad that started me out in dogs very young. Pretty sure him and my mom had me and my brother to have 2 free kennel techs that could take care of the yard and all the dogs. So started out, that was my job, was taking care of feeding dogs, cleaning kennels, and honestly, I don't ever really remember there being less than 15 or 20 dogs at our house at any given time. So, grew up around that, was able to get into having my own line of dogs, mainly hog dogs, but I worked around a lot of ranches and cow dogs and come from kind of that working dog background, and got out of cowboy work. It just wasn't the old timers pushed me in a direction to get me to understand that's not a long lasting career. There's no retirement, no insurance, high probability of getting hurt really bad. And so went some different routes, kind of bounced around in plumbing, construction, stuff like that, equipment. And around 07, 08, the collapse of like all work and economy fell out, and I was trying to get into law enforcement, but at the time with Florida Fish and Wildlife, there was a hiring freeze. Just every time I would go to put my app in, there was a hiring freeze, but I just kept at it, and finally got picked up. It took me about 2 years to get hired on with them, and that started my law enforcement career. And once I got into it a little bit, what really sparked it, because I really didn't know that they had dogs with Fish and Wildlife until my graduation from the academy. They brought a few dogs out to do a demonstration, and I was like, this is where I want to be, man. This is my path. So I did my time, put in the minimum mandatory to be able to apply. I was a little bit shy of the timeline, but I tried out, went through the interview, got selected, got my first dog, and went through school and hit the street, and saw a lot of errors and things that were just not catching bad guys. And I was deploying a lot and giving it my all and training just like they taught me, and just was not as successful as I thought we should be with as much training and opportunity that we had. Kind of bounced around back and forth, beat my head up against the training division and not really making any headway of any changes, and was given the opportunity to go to sheriff's office in Hendry County, and ultimately was given the trainer's position and sergeant's position, and was able to essentially rebuild the unit and kind of start over from scratch, get new dogs, new handlers, and get rolling from there. So selected my second dog, and which was a dual purpose, a narcotics detection dog, and went through handler and then my trainer's course through Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. Gained a lot of knowledge there and a lot of suit time, a lot of decoy time, and was able to get involved in several dog schools with lots of handlers. I think one school was like 15 dogs in just one school, and was able to be a part of a couple of them. So did our in-house schools and then started messing around with pets, man. And that kind of opened my eyes to not only be able to make some more money than what I was as a cop, but also kind of dive into not working with dogs that want to offer all kinds of stuff and are easy to work with. They may be knuckleheads, but they're full of drive and lots of go, and working with some of the pet dogs, it really teaches you how to be a better trainer. And so that really sparked with me and my wife some options that came about of getting out of law enforcement and getting into pets and possibly police dogs full time. We moved to Knoxville, Tennessee, and kind of hit the grind. You hear it all the time, people leaving the 9 to 5 to do the 24/7. And that was really what it was. And so now we have MLK-9, which is our police dogs in Knoxville, but we also have MLK-9, a couple different franchise locations. K-9 handlers that are either still active or previous handlers that decided to go full-time into pets. And then we also own Ridgeside K-9 Knoxville, where we do board and train. So we do daycare, we do boarding, and we also have full staff, full service grooming as well. So a pretty decent location there. It's a 10,000 square foot building. We have 12 staff in that building, and it's rocking from dark to dark every day, 7 days a week. And that's also where we do a lot of police dog schools. We're running trainer schools and handler schools full time, and staying very, very busy with that on top of the traveling seminars that we do. I used to say across the country, but now it's been kind of spanning out across the world. And we should be going back to South Africa this year to work with some more of the anti-poaching units, and should be pretty good out there.
Nice, man. Yeah, let's go back a little bit to the beginning, because I think that always has a significant influence on what the end result is. That makes sense. So
Yes.
with the game warden stuff, how does that, I mean, as much as you're able to talk about, how did K-9 play a role? Because I remember you telling me that, and I was like, they have dogs for that? So what was kind of your role in that?
Yeah, so currently there are 20 dogs throughout the state that are just assigned to regions. So they work to assist officers in detection of fish and game. So the majority of the dogs, their consistent odors throughout the state are deer, turkey, alligator, certain species of duck, which are federal migratory birds, because those are federally protected. And there are different saltwater species, whether it's lobster, red snapper, snook, grouper, things like that. Work on detection wise. That may be searching vehicles coming out of wildlife management areas. That may be searching, sniffing exterior of vehicles and vessels coming in from duck hunting areas, or it may be sitting at a saltwater or freshwater boat ramp, searching vessels as they come in. But the dogs also will go out offshore and stop vessels out there and do boarding and detection sniffs there. And then other sides of it are tracking bad guys regularly, whether that is something in the fish and wildlife world, whether it's trespassers, armed poachers, things like that, or linking up with sheriff's offices and tracking criminals there, which is exactly what I did quite a bit of. We also look for missing, endangered humans, whether it's missing hunter or Alzheimer's patient or a missing child, different things like that. Also, the big part of what we do is article recovery, mainly firearms, whether that is from a road hunting case where somebody may shoot an animal from the side of the road, which you're dealing with felony trespass by lethal projectile charges. We may be tasked to go out and search the edge of a right of way for a shell casing or a thrown gun. A lot of agency assist for articles, firearms from cases, or pieces of evidence from cases would be pretty regular. So you can be as proactive as you want to be, but you could also be a handler that just goes and chills under an oak tree and waits for that call to come to you. So the state is they're getting better. They've made big changes in the program. We have all of their statewide trainers in a 5-week trainers course right now with us in Tennessee to get standardized training, so that they're kind of stepping into the new age of dog training and kind of putting those old school ways in that bottom drawer of the toolbox, and maybe locking it and hiding the key for a little bit. But, they at the time, there was not much accountability. If you went out and failed deployment after deployment, nobody really paid any attention. Now there's starting to be some spotlights put on some not so good deployments and seeing how it can be done better, which works out good for me because that's what I'm all about. It's the dog on the ground. We got to do better.
Yeah, for sure, man. And so you already had, before transitioning to the sheriffs, you already had kind of for at that time, a deep understanding of tracking and detection. You were pretty familiar with.
Yeah, that's what paid my bills as a game warden. So when I went into getting the opportunity to select the dog that I could pick for the sheriff's office, I mean, I knew I was going to get a dual dog, and I cared about the apprehension side of it because I had tracked and chased my fair share of bad guys, where luckily able to run them down, but would have loved to have had an apprehension to end those tracks and foot pursuits a little bit easier. But when I went there for selection, I was really looking for a hunting machine because that's what I knew, And so the dog I selected had some busted teeth and was a little bit of a knucklehead. I didn't care because after testing, I knew he had a hunt drive for days, and I knew that was going to get me to the end of a lot of tracks. I had no clue the psychopath dog that I was selecting, but he taught me a lot of good stuff, and mainly patience. A dog that will bite you pretty fast and is capable of that. You just have to learn patience very quickly. Sometimes hard-earned lessons.
Yeah, John, I'm gonna let you hop in, and I know
What you're talking about,
right away.
Yeah. So you actually, one of the questions I had written down for you is just, with as much experience as you have, I was wondering how you've seen the training change over time, and how have the dogs changed?
You broke up a little bit. How did you think what?
So I was wondering, with as much experience as you have, how have you seen the training change over time, and how have you seen the dogs change over time?
Yeah, man. So drastic changes from training over time, as long as agencies will allow it. Some are a little bit standoffish from it. Some of them are like, hey, man, the definition of insanity, it's pretty clear what that is. So they just keep beating their head against the wall, and some of them will armed. So definitely have seen major changes for some groups, and then some are, just either can't change or won't change. But the ones that will allow it, we work with several state agencies that have seen time and time again that old school way, whether that be heavy-handed compulsion or whether it be super heavy in handler involvement type training, just not be successful continuously. And then also, it kind of runs along with the evolution of dogs that we're getting now. So I've heard it said, and I believe it wholeheartedly, that ever since 9/11, dogs have changed tremendously, but also the level of handler that we're getting in law enforcement, I think, has changed drastically. So, and you can't take dogs that handlers, these OG cops that were back in the day, just tough as nails, getting the same type of dog. You can't give to some of these new cops that are coming up because, they've learned how to deal with their problems through social media and keyboards, and that they may have a conversation with, and they don't want to do that, and so I think getting the type of dogs that we're getting now, you have to be a better trainer for sure sometimes. And I'm okay with that, man, because, there's sometimes I go to select dogs and maybe I've met the handler that the dog is going to go to, and the first dog that the vendor brings out, I'm like, yeah, there's not a chance in hell that this is going to be a good fit for this green handler. And so the next dog that comes out that's a good fit, I may have to do a lot more workup with that dog to get it truthfully ready for the street. But I'm more comfortable with that. I would rather have a dog that's not an absolute douchebag right off the rip and me have to really cater to that kind of brain. I would much rather get a dog that is very even keel. I can tell is going to be nice and neutral to back up, is going to be nice and neutral to a team while he's clearing buildings, and be able to be passed off person to person inside of a team. That was not what I had with my second dog at all. And the saying, you guys have heard it, everybody wants a real dog until they get a that says they want a real one. I say, man, go live with the dog that I got for a second dog, and just see, like, even now after being retired for 5 or 6 years, I still pie corners with him in hotels, because all it's going to take is somebody to round the corner in some type of urgency, and they're going to wear him for sure. So definitely an evolution, and I won't say it's bad or good, but there's definitely been a change. And for sure, if our training capability doesn't step up, a lot of dogs are going to fall through the cracks, and we're going to see a lot more dogs washed from programs where I hear that. Used to be, I heard it and was like, oh, well, he probably sucks. But now when I hear it, I'm like, well, you're probably just not able to communicate clearly to that dog, because most likely the toolbox is a one drawer toolbox with one hammer inside of it, and that's all you're working with. So we got to have more tools in the toolbox and be able to communicate to be able to capitalize on every dog that comes across us, because they're few and far between.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. Like, I know for the DoD side of it, like we talked earlier in the week, and we've seen a great shift in caliber of dogs where, maybe they weren't as motivated for the things that the reward system that we impose here. And that's honestly what sparked my shift in, if you really care about training and want to do what's best for the dog or get the best results, it'll constitute some type of deeper level of thinking, self-education, and, even outsourcing, if you will. And that's one of the things that I struggle with, because for a long time, I was a very big proponent for, I had my set, number of tools that I could implement, and they were pretty compulsive based off certain situations. But it was the controversy in it is that it's successful for most dogs, right? And so you kind of struggle to divorce yourself from that situation. I remember telling John a story about one of my mentors, Angel. He was trying to get me to understand another side of dog training and take a different set of lenses and approaches to dogs. And I had a 3-hour conversation with one of my other mentors saying that, dude, I think he's onto something. And it took, a 3-hour conversation of us going back and forth for me to even entertain somebody that had way more education in dogs than I probably ever will in my life. But it's a little bit of ego mixed with ignorance and just complacency. I mean, you don't want to get out of your comfort zone. And honestly, Mike, I know you watched me struggle with the tracking stuff, and I mean, from even the fucking footprints or whatever, laying the track. Sidebar conversation. I didn't know how to stomp the ground or whatever to lay the track. And so there's a drill movement. I used to be a drill instructor, and there's a drill movement that the muscle memory is completely opposite of how you would strike. Toe to the deck first would be for tracking, but ours is like basically you put your heel and like swipe the ground. So I hear these motherfuckers talking, and they're like, "He's just handicapped in that part. It's okay." But
Really, really fancy, very zesty.
yeah, very zesty is what we ended up. That's a polite way to say it. No, but I mean, but even from that, man, but that's me stepping outside of my comfort zone. I don't know much. I'm not very big into tracking. This is kind of a new world for me. But had I known stuff about tracking, I think we would have had a harder time doing the training, because it's easier for me to accept something as gospel if I don't know it. I think all of us gentlemen can attest to that one trainer that came out, did some crazy shit, in retrospect. But we were like, man, that's really good. I'm going to do that. And then you look back on it and you're like, oh my God, dude, that was not it. But
I tell handlers all the time, man, like, taught one way. And what happens is a lot of handlers, they think that the way is the only way out there. There's no other way possible for it to get done. And I'm okay with that mindset. It's when there is so much like pushback against anything else. And I always ask, like, did you create that system? Well, no, it was taught to me. Well, then why the fuck are you married to it? Because even Um, I will say I've taken a lot of things from other systems, but then I've also created a lot of stuff and implemented it that made sense to me. And it's really made more solid dogs to be able to get to the end of these tracks or runs of detection. And I'm still not married to it. If I see something better, I'm going to go at it. So why the fuck do you care if somebody brings something else up? Like, like, take a look at it. And that's something that Nesbitt says at every seminar. Like, there's a lot of stuff in our systems that we created and have a lot of pride in, but we're not married to it. If I see something better, I will move right along to it and wish the old way goodbye and start delving into the new stuff. But what I've got now is because I've been through so many systems and there's so much flawed in it that it just wasn't working consistently. So one thing I can say unequivocally to most people whenever I get pushback is, I guarantee you I've done your way and it doesn't work as consistently and fluidly for as many dogs, which is why I do what I do now, where a lot of times whenever I bring up a great example is markers and food reward, I get people that, just like I was taught, oh, that's for puppies and pet training and sissies and it's not for real dogs. And then I always ask, well, have you tried it? The answer is 100% of the time, it's no. I would never do it. Well, how the fuck can you say it doesn't work? Like, how can we make these stances that it doesn't work if we've never gotten dirty with it?
Right. And I think the other part too is there's a couple of things, and I know, John, you have some questions too, or some input, but just with, and I know, Mike, we talked about it a pretty good bit, but I was analyzing the majority of our time together. And to be honest, a good percent of it was not tracking, like dogs on deck. It was, the beauty of it was in the conversations, whether, the analysis of whether it was a dog that just ran, a dog that's about to run, or just you explaining, your theories and let's dissect this. The beauty of it was that, and you had a little bit of pushback, here and there, which is to be, that's inherent with what you do. But I like that, one, you kept a level head. That's, it didn't seem like you were trying to really defend. It was just like, let's have a genuine conversation. I think that's what smoothed things over throughout the progression of the training. But a lot of people, and John and I used to talk about this all the time. We were like, for us, it was the whiteboard. When John and I started working together with pets, we spent countless hours doing the whiteboard, just writing out, all right, this theory, what does this produce? Trying to predict as accurately as possible the best situation for that individual dog or that characteristic of dog, right? And then here we go again, where I'm referencing pet industry, like you said earlier, Mike. That's where, if you really want to do the work, pick up a pet and fucking work, and you'll figure out some shit. That's right. That's just the truth. And you'll see how it reverts back to dog training is dog training across any gambit. The principles are the same. But getting back on target, man, I think it's really hard for people to get away from what they know. And then the other part is getting to them to accept a new idea and then getting them to see it all the way through. Because if your intention is to be a better dog trainer, whether it's for selfish reasons, your ego, or whatever you want to say you're the best, or your actual intention is to better the dog so that it thrives best in what the intentions are, you have to go through the process knowing that it is a process. And that is one of the things, not to take away from what you do, Mike. I mean, it's across the board. It fucking sucks. Like we said today, I wish we had another week.
Yeah.
That we could see the whole process through. Because in that bridge of going across, like, you've already laid the foundation and we're just laying our bricks to continue to go across the bridge. But somewhere, if your intentions aren't to see it through, the first mistake that dog makes, you say, okay, I knew it was wrong. I knew what I was saying worked. And that's not the thing, and I'm not accusing anybody of anything. These are based off of my experiences from past trainers years ago. And so I think it has to be the obligation of the student to want to see it through. And that's just my little tidbit.
Yeah.
Part of what you guys are saying, where Mike, you're saying people are married to this training system that they didn't even come up with, and you both kind of touched on it and just different things I've seen. I feel like people are married to it because they don't necessarily understand why they're doing what they're doing. They were just taught a system. They're following the steps in order, and they're more scared than anything to veer from that system. And as people, we kind of have this like them versus us mentality, right? You see it across everything. We group up, we find people who share similar ideas. Everything outside of that, it's human nature. We feel like we need to attack it, or it's a threat to what we're doing, instead of people being open to what's new. Like you said, if more people were just willing to try it, and if they're more analytical and like, hey, I'm not necessarily getting the results, this doesn't always work, or here's the pitfalls, I think we'd all be better off as dog trainers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Mike, speaking of that, so you had a system that technically did work. I mean, you're in front of us today, and you've been in some tricky situations that maybe you should not have made it out of. But what got you into, creating a new system? Is we're going to segue into tracking here shortly. But what kind of was like that shit moment? Like, okay, let me figure out something different, or what got you?
It started like right when with my fish and wildlife dog deploying on multiple tracks and just thinking, man, I can find you in a training track. I feel like no problem. But then I hit a live deployment and I'm not consistently getting there. Like these bad guys are not teleporting. They're not getting airlifted out of these neighborhoods. They got to be fucking somewhere. So why am I not finding them? And so I kind of beat my head against the wall for a little while with that. And then on to my second dog, where, a slightly different training program, definitely not as old school as with my game warden dog. I'd already been playing around with like markers and food reward. And so I was able to implement a lot of that and getting back to the field with him. And really, as far as tracking goes, like, just like every handler, you go to any training day and just watch dogs pass 90-degree turns over and over and over. Maybe 50% of them they hit, and 50% of them they'll pass. And it really made me try to look for a different approach to things. And once I got my hands on Dick Stahl method, where I was able to do some more article-based stuff, that led me into hard surface, because with my game warden dog, we were all of us in K-9 school was really worried about short grass fields. Like short grass fields are the most difficult. Oh man, we just, we struggle at that. And God forbid somebody had mowed a field and made it shorter. Like that was just the end of it. We couldn't do it, And then when I started doing more hard surface, and, I went through some hydration tracks and squishing food along the way and putting my underwear in a spray bottle and all this crap, and none of it really impressed me until I got with Dick Stahl's method. And I put bunches and bunches of dogs through that system, and it looks great, but it took a very long time, every dog, to really get that system down pat for them. But I started seeing a lot of baggage consistently, especially in my personal dog, my second dog, with that article based. So once I got out of, we were successful with the Dick Stahl method with most of the dogs in my unit. My dog was lucky enough to get a lot of work and a lot of real world tracks and bites off that, which helped him quite a bit. But he was still very fast tracker, moved at a really fast pace. If my backup wasn't super squared away, they were not going to be with me by the time I caught the knucklehead at the end. And once I got out of cop work and started getting more contract dogs, and then went through a Nipopo Silver and then Gold, that really opened my eyes up to one simple word: accountability. Like just holding the dogs more accountable in detection and tracking, and taught me to really lean more into and be less scared of, be respectful, but be less scared of e-collars, and start to utilize them in that accountability to separate myself from the dog. And man, whenever I started really getting into that, the first dog that I built in this new system. He now works for University of North Carolina in Greensboro, and just a tracking machine, man. And I was still teaching, starting to get requests for seminars. This is kind of the other side of what pushed me in a new direction was seminars. I would show up to, like K-9 United, I'm an instructor for them. If I teach in Florida, there's well over 100 dog teams at a Florida seminar.
Nice.
And I remember one in particular at Camp Blanding in North Florida. We're up first day, works over here, do obedience, out and recalls over here, and then we're going to tracking, you stay here with Mike. And Jay Nix was splitting all the guys up. And everybody starts kind of going away, and I see this group of probably 60 handlers that are still standing in front of me. And Jay turns to them and he's like, "Hey, you fucking guys that can't follow directions. Again, this is where you go if you want that, and if you want stay here." And they all just stood there like, "Yeah, we're looking for tracking." And I am with my main go-to is a food bowl with a nail with a washer driven through it with Dick Stahl going to drop food and kibble through it. Well, the majority of the dogs in front of me are Florida dogs. They've got multiple street bites. They have zero control, no neutrality. They aren't on food reward. They do not understand the marker, and they're trying to eat me. So here I'm standing with a food bowl and a nail, driving it in the ground, dodging teeth at left and right, trying to get the dog consistently to put their nose in the food bowl. And I left there very frustrated. And some of the handlers got some good stuff, but the majority of them, I really feel like left there scratching their head. And it was not a very productive, in my opinion. I really had to go back to the drawing board and start to look for something that would help guys at seminars, and that would progress much faster in, say, a 3 to 5 day seminar. And so I started just kind of R&Ding stuff with dogs, pet dogs, personal dogs. And so the red Malinois that's in my tracking PowerPoint, Graham, he was my kind of my guinea pig. That's why he's in PowerPoint. He does very, very good, whether it's hard surface, woods, grass, creeks, doesn't matter. So the system kind of evolved from there, and then seminars started picking up, and I learned from every seminar and every dog how to really, like we talked, to be able to get words out in the moment to the handler when the dog needed that, and be able to put thought to word and get it out of my face hole to the handler so that they could implement it right in the moment they needed it. And that's really where it came from, man, is just for me to not look like an idiot in front of another large group of handlers again, but also to make better dogs that are more reliable. And that accountability side has been an absolute game changer. We do it in everything else, or most handlers do it in everything else, but protection, it's always been like a taboo. No, you don't correct them. Don't even step on the leash. Don't even think about correcting them while they're doing detection or tracking. And boy, has that been I've learned that was a lie that was pushed into me pretty hard.
That seems to be a pretty common one, the whole no correcting and tracking and detection, which is kind of crazy because bite work, tracking, detection, obedience, me and Sean talk about it all the time. It's still dog training. The same principles still apply. I know you guys have just kind of gone through the course a little bit this week with some of the DoD guys, but can you explain briefly kind of what your system looks like now? I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but just to give like a better idea.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, what it really boils down to is free shaping a tracking dog. That's really what it boils down to. And when I went to the drawing board, that was what I was looking at is, free shaping obedience. Everybody does it. Free shaping all this stuff. Everybody does it. But I've never really seen anybody free shape tracking. And so it was like, or very many people do it in detection as well. So in detection was, that's pretty easy. You can create a Skinner box around the dog, and you can put puppy gates around them, or you can set the environment up to be conducive for good free shaping work. But how in the world do you do it with tracking? So the way I really started to look at it was my 15-foot tracking line could be my puppy fence. It could be me setting up my Skinner box and essentially giving the dog, not all of it, but most of it, and saying, just use it wisely. So as long as your intentions are good, I have the ability with my loaded marker and through my existential reward to really mark what I want and to ignore what I don't want. And so often handlers go, well, would you correct that? Me and Mike Nesbitt, we kind of, every seminar, we say we're going to make shirts that say it depends, because that's our answer is it depends, you know?
Yeah.
And what I preach now, I've kind of come to is the intent of the dog. I read the intentions of the animal. If their intentions are shitty and lazy, then yeah, I'll probably correct them. And that correction may be barely a tap on the leash. It may be e-collar. It may be both. It just depends on the dog and what we're talking about. But if I just wait most of them out, for the most part, they're going to give me the ability to mark something. And then I can lean into most likely a direct reward setup where I'm just paying somewhere around where the dog's nose was on footprints. So kind of taking from the old school Schutzen style tracking where you're on this nice plush floor tam field and you're making this really deep impression with your and then dropping some kibble under your foot and squishing that down and laying, what we call big crop circles, and laying just a big crop circle and running your dog way, getting that real deep nose footprint to footprint. If you've messed around in that system, what you'll see a lot of is once the dogs realize there's something out there for them to find, your main job is to keep them slowed down, because criminals, they're inmates, want to find their advantage in every system. Very, very lazy animals for the most part, but they're brilliant. I mean, they are absolutely brilliant, and they figure out their advantage very, very easily. And so if we can remove everything from the track that they can cheat on, even down to that very small concrete nail that Dick Stahl's system puts out there, even if you can remove that, which after a few reps, they get very, very good at finding that, and they'll find a way to cheat to make it to that nail with just a little bit of human odor on it. That's really what it boils down to, is allowing that kind of free shaping mindset to be on the track, laying a track in the most difficult environment with a brand new dog, and just leaning on, I'm going to give you this much line either direction. If you use it, kind of disrespectfully or not properly, you're probably going to correct yourself, because you're going to hit the end of that line at 100 mile an hour. I don't really have to do anything but hold my ground. And then when you recover from that, maybe you put your head down, I can mark and pay that. Or you just engage your nose, I can mark and pay that. It just allows a ton of options, whether it's movement from me for the dog to gain ground, marker and payment, indirect, direct, no marker, and just throw food, direct reward. If we have to use a toy, kind of like the DOD setup, where we're trying to work inside of those parameters, it just puts a lot more responsibility on the animal to produce, as compared to some older methods where you're doing a lot of presenting the ground and back to work and correcting and begging the dog for some level of work, but nursing them through it at the same time. And then whenever you go to the real world, to a live deployment, you can't help the dog out because you don't know, and most likely you're stressed to the end of the world in a live deployment. But the dog, through training, is looking to you for guidance and help, and you can't. All falls to shit very, very quickly.
Yeah. And one of the things, man, that I liked about what you teach, I tell a lot of my clients, if you look for things to reward, you'll find less things to punish. And that's thank you. That's one of the things that I like about your system, is that it kind of encompasses that mindset. And I know it's hard for me mechanically to do it, because I was doing a shit job out there. But that's what I looked at and one of the things I want to highlight about your system, if it's okay, is that when you do correct the dog, I don't recall you correcting the dog at least on the leash, and it didn't end with the dog getting reinforced for doing the right thing. Like, there was never a point where I saw a dog even if it was a pretty meaningful correction, because we have dogs that wanted to pee on trees, and we need to, kind of extinct that behavior a little bit when we're on clarity of task. And I'll let you touch on that in a second. But and that's what kind of provided that clarity of task. You don't end on a physical correction and it's like, oh, fuck him, he's good. The most I saw that was ending on punishment, if you will, was the negative punishment. If the dog is being somewhat lazy, if you will, or not interested in searching, okay, we will ignite a flame in them by using the use of negative punishment. And I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to give too much of your stuff away. People need to go and see it in person, honestly. But yeah, the use of negative punishment is about the extent of what I saw as far as leaving off on a correction. And then the dog was brought back out very, enthused with the work, and we saw a different dog and a better dog. So, but if you will, we're going to kind of leap subjects as we are cooking on some time, which is good. That means that we're in a flow state. But I want you to touch on clarity of task, man, if you don't mind, and the importance of it.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in the dual purpose dog world, all of them want to do, if they get to decide, they want to do one thing, and that's bite human beings. Something that Nepo Po and Bart Bellin really showed me was there's nothing not possible for these dogs. And so many handlers make it for the dogs, and I was one of them. My retired dog, I just thought, when we enter a building and start clearing it, like horrible tactics, it was just me and a dog in a room clearing, no team with me. You were with me, he's biting you. I mean, I just thought, this is the dog I've got. Like, everybody stay back. Don't be inside of that 15, 18 foot mark while I'm tracking. And then I took my retired dog, his name's Nico. I took him to Gold School because Popo Silver is all classroom, all theory, no leash time. And then Gold is pretty much all leash time. So I took him, and, a dog that was trained in several different kind of Frankenstein put together systems, and it worked. We caught plenty of bad guys. He bit a lot of people, and I trusted him from end to end. But he had a lot of skeletons in his closet, and was pretty difficult to work around, and an extremely violent dog. So by the time I left there from Gold School, I found that there's nothing that these dogs can't do as long as we provide that clarity of task. And, I think in the dual dog world, like when I tell guys, dogs, when they're leaving me, they are fully capable of biting a suited decoy or multiple suited decoys in a room, verbally outing and recalling, and then sending for detection in the same room. And not like detection where they sniff a little and then check to see if the decoy's there, and then sniff a little and check to see if the decoy's there. Like, it is man work, and then it is detection because I gave that command. And it's pretty, like, all these handlers go, that's not possible with my dog. And by the time they're done with a trainer's course, their dog is doing exactly that. And it is because that clarity of task. And I think the biggest part of it is removing the fucking excuses. Just taking the excuses away and say, by God, this is what we're going to do. And I'm not going to put my hands on you to do it. I tell every handler, every trainer in my course, you will not be able, you may be able to count on two fingers how often I put hands on a dog in an entire course from start to finish. And it will, in those moments, it will always be for trying to bite me, is when we have that communication. Anything outside of that, we really can get dogs to do high level stuff and never have to put our hands on them in ways that, old school mindset was just, that's how it's done. And bringing that clarity of task to them is going to help them make it to the street and still thrive. We see dogs all the time that go through some heavy handed trainers, and just to be able to get them to certify and say out and recall, they've had their ass handed to them. And then they finally make it to the street because they pass out and recall, and they get their first time to bite a human being, and they don't have enough gas left in the tank to do it because of the fucking out and recall training that they went through. When if there was clarity of task there, we would never have to do anything to them. It would be their idea. They make the decisions. We just find the stuff to pay them for. And we don't work against ourselves. And always say, if a dog truthfully understood tracking, would they bypass 90-degree turns? If they really understood detection, would they decide to go try to challenge somebody standing outside of a traffic stop and not search the car? If they understood the task, they would just do the task. But we get so many times where handlers make these excuses for the dogs of, well, you just can't look him in the eye, or, hey, do you mind taking your hat off?
Yep.
Have this person stand back further. And we just cater to these animals, when if we just held them to a higher standard and realized that, like I had that moment with my retired dog in Gold School that, man, he's been working me this whole fucking time. Like, I've been catering to him over and over and over when I should have just became a better trainer and got, a little bit more clear communication and just not allowed things and worked through it and don't give up. They fight us, and we go, fuck it. And we go back to the same things we were doing before, where we really just need to keep working at it because Rome wasn't built in a day.
So, quick question for you with clarity of task. I know we did an episode maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago talking about like foundational skills. What do you think the main like disconnect is for handlers and dogs when they are lacking that clarity? Is it lack of foundational skills, lack of repetitions, that kind of thing? Get your take on that.
Foundation. It's
hot damn. Imagine that.
Every time, like, we'll go to agencies where they go, we track really well. We want more advanced stuff. And I go, okay. And day one, we do evaluation tracks, and their foundation was never laid. There was never anything laid foundationally. And because I think, especially in the cop world, and what I saw from the DoD world, just look at tracking. A lot of the stuff that we did the first handful of reps with these dogs didn't look anything like tracking. But as we as humans go, well, we need to track. So let's get out there and track. We miss all the foundation. We're trying to run, this big oak horse when we haven't even learned to crawl yet. So foundationally, it's always what is missed. We always try to go way too fast and do way too much. I hear this everywhere. Oh man, something I really want to work on is being able to do focused healing around a suited decoy. And my first question is always why, because how often are we encountering suited decoys out in our world? It's just, I've never seen one walking around on the street. I don't know about you guys. I just haven't seen any. Can your dog heal around just a group of people?
Exactly.
We struggle with that. Well, then why the fuck are we talking about a suited decoy? Like, learn to heal just you and him for a couple weeks straight, and then learn to heal around, other people. And then we'll probably, if they're my guys, we're still not going to heal around a suited decoy because it's fucking stupid. Like, we don't need that. What pays our bills is tracking and catching bad guys, is sniffing cars on the sides of the road and finding narcotics. And if you can do that stuff very well, then let's talk about healing around a suited decoy. I'm good with it then. But until we're checking the boxes that pay the bills, let's work on that foundation until we can run a full sprint really well.
Yeah. And you touched on a lot of parts that are important. And like John and I'm actually going to send you, I meant to send it to you during the school, but John actually brought up clarity of task in that episode. And, but it doesn't, and it just validates dog training is dog training. You cannot go around, foundational work, and eventually it's going to show in one capacity or another. And I think if I understand you clearly, I mean, from the week that we spent, that's what you're trying to avoid is, dude, you can either show it in training or you're going to see it in real life. And real life in, the cop world, heavier penalties than just failing a cert, and there's, and I go ahead.
You get to a spot where you've passed your foundation and you decide, damn, this is not going so well. You got to go back there. You should have been in the first place. So you're either going to automatically have to go back there and do what you should have done in the first place, or you're just never going to be right. You're never going to be 100%. And you're always just going to be telling yourself, nah, we're good. When damn good and well, you missed a big step in the building of that dog.
I want to shift gears because I think we've hit the tracking part pretty well, real quick, and I want to talk about more of like the pet side of things and what that actually looks like. And I'll start it off with this. Like, I know I was with John for part of it, and he went through a struggle before I met him. But Mike, I wanted you to kind of just give us the real down and dirty of like what it looks like before you own Ridgeside, before you have K-9, before you have franchises. Because a lot of people, and I think it's just a byproduct of everything. You can sell yourself on Instagram and make yourself look successful, and everybody loves the image. And I was a victim of it because I don't have a pressure. Dogs to a degree pay my bill, but they're not the thing that pets don't pay my bill. So I don't have that pressure on me. So I wanted you to kind of speak, both of y'all gentlemen, if y'all could share your stories. We'll start with Mike.
Yeah. So, before I really got into it was, going to be just one dog. Me and my wife talked about it. We started an LLC. We said, we'll just do one dog. We'll see how it goes, because the cost of setting up kennel, just that one dog, we talk about it from time to time. We went into Tractor Supply and we found the kennel we were going to set up, and, we're taking somebody's pet, somebody's family member. So we needed it to be really, really nice. And by the time we were fixing to buy it and walk out the door, we were looking at, $700-800 purchase that as a county sergeant and trainer and a school teacher, that was, that's big money.
Yes, sir.
So it was an investment that we were like, oh man, I don't know if this is going to work out. And the joke now, it's a joke to us, but we don't mean anything bad by it, but we were struggling to buy that one kennel, and now we've got like 60 of them kennels at our Ridgeside facility. So the mindset has changed, but it went from one dog. I didn't have the money for a place bed. I was using the top of an air crate, the top half of a air crate for my place, and was training in drizzling rain. Didn't have a garage, didn't have a barn, was quite literally training outside. And I went on shift at 6P. So right before 6P, I was out there, getting reps in. Would get off at 6A, break dogs and do training reps before I went to bed. And after that first dog, and kind of putting some videos on social media, we had more people reaching out, and kind of what I preach now to our new trainers or even handlers that are asking me. The biggest step is to start answering yes when you get asked, hey, do you train dogs? Because as a K-9 handler with a big marked vehicle with K-9 written on it, members of the public think that you must train dogs. And the biggest way to get started is start going, yeah, I can help you with that. As soon as you start answering yes, you'll see a big change. And so that's what I started doing. Man, it went from that one dog to 4 and 5 dogs at a time. Then when I moved to Tennessee, I was consistently doing 12 to 15 pet dogs at a time while teaching handlers courses and training police dogs, getting them ready for contracts, and just being essentially balls to the wall, man, just dark to dark every day, wide open. Because my belief is, and this is what I preach to our franchise locations, is you only have so much time on this earth, and no offense against them. I'm not saying anything about the gig, but I just don't want to have to be a Walmart greeter at 70 years old because I have no other way to pay bills. I want to be able to just pull the plug, kick back, and know that I've put forth as much effort as I can while I had the body and energy and capability to do it, and not have any regrets looking back at that. So, starting out, just hit it wide open, start saying yes, start answering that question yes, and just like we preached our locations, put the customer first. Customers are going to be a pain in the butt sometimes, but what I preach to our owners or our trainers is we quite literally monetize the dysfunction of the human. And sometimes that comes along with some pain in the butt phone calls and things like that. But we go to the end of the world to help them and their animal because that's what this game is about, to provide a better training than what you can find out there when you do a Google search and then go looking at these places, because some of their training is pretty freaking rough. I wouldn't send my worst enemy's dog to most of them. So, we just got to provide better. Hopefully we get those clients, keep them away from their dog going to some shenanigans.
Thanks. John, how'd you go through it?
So pretty almost in reverse, actually. So started out, graduated high school, military, all that. And I was a jet mechanic in the military. And then I've always just had a fascination with dogs, got into bite suits, training my own dogs. And all of a sudden I realized it's something I wanted to do for myself. But it started out exactly what you said. I just started telling people yes. Hey, do you train dogs? Can you do this for me? Yeah, sure. And even though I wasn't sure how to do it in the beginning, I would just offer like, hey, I can try. right? I would go and take as many dogs as I could. I would train them. I would try and learn. I would reach out to people. And the biggest thing was getting used to talking to people, being very honest with what your skill set is at the time. Like starting out at 17, 18, had no skill set. Like I was on YouTube. I had a couple of my own dogs, and I went through and just got repetition. So over the years, you start to get more comfortable, grew a pet training business to the point where we were doing about 12, 15 dogs a month. I remember one month I was doing 17 dogs by myself, started to expand out, started to hire some more trainers. And now I'm actually in the reverse of kind of where you started. I'm going the law enforcement. I really wanted to see the K-9 side of it after working with some police dogs, after being in sport for a little while. I really want to know what the other side of that coin looks like. What are they going through out there? What are these dogs doing? What's the true application of it look like? And now I'm in academy right now. I won't talk too much about it, but I'm in academy right now. I've got 4 pet dogs here right now. Well, 2 pet dogs and 1 long-term service dog. And right now I'm trying to figure out how to work around that schedule. Way more draining than I thought it would be. Going to the law enforcement side, I'm waking up early, training dogs, staying up late, training dogs. And the goal is to figure out exactly what that schedule is going to look like, kind of leverage some of those benefits of being a K-9 handler in this community to grow that business and expand. But it's interesting, but I'm just at that right time to kind of scratch that itch of what do they actually do with these dogs on the street? And I just got to know. But it's pretty similar with the pet dog things. You got to say yes. You have to get out of your comfort zone. You got to push yourself. And the most exhausting thing is constantly, like you said, catering to the clients is a big thing, but you're always looking for that next client. You're always advertising yourself, marketing for your company. And I know that wears a lot of people out. Like we all got in this because we love to train the dogs.
Yeah.
You have to learn to communicate with the people and continue to reach out to people too.
Yeah, and that's something that I don't have any stories next to that because I've been in this context very, what is it, silver spoon or whatever, but I was just telling John that this year is probably my year of action, like just doing stuff. Okay. But this year is my year for action, like to actually do stuff, and a lot of that had to do, and it's a mixture of a combo of what you gentlemen just said. Like, Mike, I know we had a conversation outside the kennels and you were like, brother, I know what you're trying to do with the 1 dog at a time thing. And you're like, you're just trying to be comfortable. And that's one thing I appreciate is just outright honesty. Like, take it for what it is, but that is what you're doing. And I know John's been very sensitive and trying to push me in the right direction and trying to promote me to do more, but I've studied a lot with him as far as the business end. And then, and to be honest, I mean, going back to what you said, Mike, about time is just, it kind of fades away if you don't take advantage of it. And I learned that a lot from my younger sister that recently passed last year. And I mean, at 22 years old, it's done, and it's, and that kind of put me in obviously I was in a bad state of mind for a long period of time, but going into this year, it's like, what can you do? And it's like, I can only just act and move forward or just stay in the same thing. And so, definitely, Mike, not so much, the long term, but appreciate the advice to validate the course of action that I'm trying to go through. So like I told John the other day, I was like, I think it's time I paid my dues and I have my little story of fuck, dude, I'm up every night, getting up early, doing the grind, the hustle. So yeah, me to y'all personally, thank y'all, for that indirect validation. But yeah, John, I know you had a couple of questions for Mike for the law enforcement side. We can either ask it now or we can maybe talk off topic. I know Mike, we've taken a lot of your time. But
so just a quick question I had for you. I always say there's a lot of stuff I've done, but I don't know what I don't know, right? So I don't even know what questions to ask. So my biggest thing are, coming into this as a new handler, what are some things you're like, this is important. Like, this is things I wish I knew starting out day one.
And real quick, John, can you just kind of give him a little bit more context on potentially what your role is going to be?
Yeah. So, dual purpose dog is a very serious dog. Like you said, I will probably be turning corners and being very careful with this dog for most of his life. He's got some tracking experience. I got him from a department. Well, he got kicked out of 2 departments because he's that kind of dog. Now, our obedience, our relationship has been pretty good over the last 2 months I've had him. I'm not very versed in tracking or detection, really, just more so obedience and the bite work side of things. But my role is going to be coming to this as a dual-purpose dog, narcotics, tracking, and apprehension. So I'm in a pretty active county if they're getting bites regularly. Just so some tips for someone coming into that situation, I guess.
Yeah, something that is huge for me, especially in the dual dog world, that will help you tremendously is get your dog out into real world environments and teach the dog to do nothing, to come out and do fucking nothing. I'm not talking come out and do OB, not come out and do engagement. I mean, come out, walk around and get back in the car. Come out, go into fly, sit down and hang out with him for a minute, talk to some people. You know, obviously nobody pet him, let him see other dogs come in and out, but just get out and do absolutely nothing because, and you can't do enough of that in my opinion, but especially in the dual dog world, they get so used to getting in that patrol car, going somewhere, coming out and fucking shit up, and then getting back in the patrol car and doing it again. So then over a very short period of time, they learn that just getting out of the car means they're going to jack stuff up just being there, where you can, you can't do enough of just get out and do nothing and let him learn that even roll up on traffic stops where you are not needed, where nobody asked you to come there, and get him out and just chill in the ditch. Put him up, leave. Go to a scene where you are not needed. Maybe it's just a paper call. Maybe it's just maybe it's just a theft report, or, maybe just a basic burglary report. Or if you can go to those shit show calls where guys have their lights going and the scene has kind of cleared, go for a stroll through the scene. And let him take all that in. Traffic crashes, just your basic fender bender. Let him roll up and kind of deal with those gas and diesel and radiator fluid and all that stuff scattered across the road. Let him walk around the bumpers and pieces and shit laying across the street, and kind of take all that in regularly, because you don't want him experiencing these things, number one, for the first time on a real world call, but number two, in that same, but his motor, through the roof, because he thinks he's going there to just fight somebody, where we quite literally want him going there just thinking of church music, just Sunday morning in the pews, look ready for you to give him direction, not him dragging you where he thinks he gets to go to turn stuff on. That will help you tremendously, to just do that.
That's huge. I actually really appreciate that. I can start working on that now. That's something I'll start really pushing. And it's funny because people always ask me with pet dogs, what's the one skill I could teach their dog? And I tell them to do absolutely nothing. As if your dog can do nothing, then it's breathing. Yep.
That's right.
That's awesome. Never even occurred to me to apply that to working dogs or to police dogs. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Get that motor where it can function and just chillax, not where he thinks he's coming in to fight everybody. That comes from me making that mistake with my dog. And then, it took me, I can't believe it took me so many dogs to realize that. I'm like, golly, like I told Sean today, we're our own worst on most of the things we do. And we have no clue we're our own worst enemy. And I tell so many handlers, the best thing you can do, most likely, is throw your toys away. Throw your Kongs away, throw your tugs away until that foundation is built and really solid. Then they can come back in the mix. But if we're building, building searches, I don't teach any of that with decoys and biting. I teach it with food and clarity, with teams moving all around the dog while they're just eating and sniffing for food and putting food behind threshold. I'm teaching that final response with marking it and then cracking the door and letting them eat. Food in every corner, food behind desks and objects, places where we want them searching for humans. And then we can do somebody behind the door once they've got a search pattern and team neutrality and all those nice, flowy, neutral behaviors, not going in and making it be just super all out spicy.
It just draws me back, and John and I have had this conversation, and Mike, we had it earlier in the week, but dog training is just the best dog training is the most boring shit you'll ever see, and the
Yeah.
most simplistic thing, and it goes against everything in human nature. What we're hardwired to do, hardwired to help. Intervention, all that
Yeah.
good stuff. But if it's done correctly, timing and all that, everything else, you produce such a solid dog, such a reliable dog, and then you get to do the crazy shit, the stuff that you want to see. But it is based on that foundation. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. I know, Mike, we've taken a lot of your time this year, last night in San Antonio. What's that?
It's all good.
No, I appreciate you being on here, man. So obviously you're doing a lot of seminars and you've done a lot of education just on this podcast alone, dude. What do you have planned for the upcoming year, if you don't mind?
Oh man, that's my wife has that schedule late. I just show up and stand where she tells me, and got being out here was one I was really looking forward to. South Africa again, to visit and hang out with some of the guys that we met last year in Zimbabwe. We're going to get to go to the South African Ranger College out there, where they teach all the dogs, where they work with it's almost like a Lackland, really. It's where they're breeding that, where they teach all the tracking and skills that they need. And they're also training the rangers and land managers. And so really get to deep dive in how they do things and just kind of be a fly on the wall and maybe help where we can. So definitely looking forward to that. And just lots of other seminars. We've got California a couple times. We've got Rhode Island, and tons of other. My wife is whispering to me all the seminars that we've got lined up.
Oh, is that her in the background? I see her moving. Are you going to be? Let me try to help you out, man, because I think that's just synonymous with good dog trainers. Because John can't remember a goddamn thing. And I'm trying to recall what you said. I think you're going to be presenting at HITS?
Yeah, we'll be at HITS. We'll be
Okay.
at I think K-9 has asked us to come out this year, because last year we just couldn't make it. We had another seminar scheduled the same time. We may be out at ATK9, and yeah, we've got quite a few. And there's a conference out in Washington. That this one will be a new one for me. A conference that I've been asked to teach at there. I haven't been out there before, so conferences are a little bit tough because you've only got a short block to quite a bit of information in, where seminars we get 3 to 5 days, where the conference you're just like trying to stuff as much info. But this year at Hold the Line, they've asked me to do like a live demo, and they're going to bring me some dogs to work with. We talked about that last year. I think that's going to be quite a bit more beneficial for handlers than just seeing a PowerPoint, answering a bunch of questions. We'll be able to get hands on a couple dogs and put it into use there in the parking lot.
Nice.
I am kicking myself. Is
your wife busy? I was here to say, have her come on and say hi.
She just crawled back into bed. She looked over and said, no.
Okay. All right. Too easy. But no, I'll give her a quick shout out, because throughout the seminar that you provided here, you and your wife, it wasn't, and one of the things I thought was pretty unique is you guys are very transparent and very open. And there was a lot of discussions we had about the industry personally and things that I was concerned about. And you're like, yeah, stay away from X and maybe this and that. But one of the things I heard constantly and behind the tracks was one of my guys was constantly asking her for advice about the business. And there was no, hey, you can do this, but ML-K-9 or Rich Side or anything like that. It was a very genuine conversation. Like, no, you need to answer yes to this, or, things of that nature, and this is what you want to look at for posting, and have you tried this context? And that's from both ends. But especially your wife, obviously, Mike, you were helping us with dogs and stuff like that. And even the sidebar conversations, you guys were open to, sharing your resources as far as what you know and the, what to stay away from and lessons learned. So I appreciate you passing that baton of knowledge. I know this is kind of a little jerk fest right now, but no, I really appreciate the the genuineness, man. Like that's something. I was telling John, I've met some people, and some people who just aren't it. So we'll put it that way.
We
But
appreciate it. We really are here for handlers and the dogs. And I mean, there are a lot of people out there, I think, say those words because they're easy to say, but they don't do it. And you can see it through their actions. And I think, she really loves the dogs. She was talking about Bond earlier, and I wonder what Bond's doing.
God.
So you really are in it. Obviously, we have to make a living.
Of course.
We're in it, help handlers and help dogs. And we'll give in, like when you were saying earlier, not to give too much away, man. We'll give whatever we want, whatever we can, anytime, because it's if it keeps a dog and handler safe, we're down for it.
Hell yeah. All right. Last question, or how do people find y'all? If they want to get embedded with y'all, how do they do that?
Yeah, the easiest way is going to be emailing the upper management lane over there, Suzi, SUZI@LK, the number, email or that, or if they're looking for seminars or classes or upcoming stuff or how to host. She's got a whole packet that she can send you and get that stuff taken care of. If they want to have any questions directly to me, myself, 239-243-145. I get handlers that call all the time. Just give me a shout. Now, if it's a 5-page question about why the dog is barking during building searches, may take me a few days to get back with you, but I'm always open to have conversations, answer questions, send me videos, critique. I'm good with all of it. It may take me a little bit because I may be teaching, but I'm open to guys reaching out and hollering.
Yeah, and that's legit. Fucking Mike Jones of the dog industry.
Right.
Yeah, that's the first dude. I've never heard somebody give out their personal number, but that's good.
Yeah.
All right. John's like tweaking in the background. He's like, fuck no.
No, I got a separate number for that.
But yeah. But no, Mike, I appreciate you taking time away from your wife again and just, your time to kind of, relax and all that good stuff and doing this with us, not knowing anything about our podcast, which right now there's probably nobody listening, but it is what it is. But no, for real, man, I appreciate you. John, you have anything closing out?
No, I think that's everything. I might ask you a couple questions offline just about some stuff with the department.
All right. Yep. That'll do it for another episode of Working Dogs and Whiskey. And we appreciate you, Mike.
No worries, y'all. Have a good night.
All right, you too, man.
You too.